at the same time, you can't overwhelm people, which is a tendency I have to fight is over teaching, right? But with that said, it's a sacred duty. It's an honor, and it's a responsibility that should not be taken lightly. If you take it upon yourself to equip people with skills, with mentality, with tactics, even, which oftentimes will trump that skill and are vitally important. If you're going to teach them, then it better be the cutting edge. It better be the best that we can possibly offer. And it better be presented in a format that they can grasp, that they can walk away with.
You're listening to the Art and More podcast with your hosts, Nathan and BR. Nathan is a Canadian illustrator with a couple years of military experience, and BR is a British anarchist that moved to the States. Both are passionate shooters and community builders. Together, they run the Seaburn art page. Enjoy the show.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Art and War podcast. BR can't join us because, again, he is gay, and even though this is the second time starting this cold open, I'm going to keep that. And if you take it out, you're extra gay. Today we've got Michael from American Reconstruction Concepts. I hear you chuckling there at abusing the producer of this show. You shouldn't. That's pretty shitty of you.
Standard ops. Don't worry about it. It's nothing personal.
But yeah, how are you, man? I'm sorry we're recording so late. It's like 9 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
9 p.m. I've had 3 all-nighters this week. Yeah, sorry.
No worries at all. You know what? A cup of coffee at, close to 10 o'clock is just awesome. It tastes even better than in the morning, so don't sweat it at all.
Oh, 100%. No, I'm doing this, I'm not going to say the name. It's a really, really gay energy drink brand, but it's fucking good. It's like green tea peach. One of those kind of organic things. I'm trying to treat my body a little better. Anyways.
You're trying to treat your body better, but you already confessed you're at like 600 milligrams of caffeine today, so I don't know, man.
And I'm still barely functioning.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that happens, man. I'm like half functioning on the best of days, and here we are. I think every course that I've shown up to do with you has been similar. It's like, I'm really excited for this. Let's go do, carbine class in the middle of buttfuck Washington.
Right.
I have to drive for 4 hours each way, so here we go. Hey. I show up there exhausted. I leave more exhausted. Almost hit like several people on the way home, but it's always worth it. I have fun. Yeah,
well, you didn't shoot anybody at the range, so that was good, you know?
Not yet. Yeah. You know, give it a couple classes.
Sure.
We'll make sure your USCCA insurance premiums are paid out in full. God, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to cut like half of this. So, Michael, we had a conversation last time. For whatever reason, I we've met and hung out and shot together a bunch of times. I was under the impression you were a TAC P for a while. Then when I mentioned that to you, you looked at me like I just shat in your shoe. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've done and what you do?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I joined as a purebred, which means that I signed up for a shot at becoming a SERE specialist and made it on the first run through the selection process. And so as a member of the Air Force, the SERE specialist is one of more unique within the DoD because it's one of the only positions where you can actually sign up for becoming an instructor out of the gate. And that's one reason why they have such an intensive and long training process for well over a year before you're actually teaching guys the survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training school. And so probably one of the reasons why I kind of had a funny face with the TAC P is because we constantly have TAC Ps going through the schoolhouse, and I love them. You know, they got, I don't know if they got the best hearts. They're bold, they're audacious. They got a lot of gung-ho. They're just not the brightest bulbs, man. You know, I hate to say that. But
really?
They're good guys. They're good guys. Don't get me wrong. But man, they do some crazy crap. Yeah. So anyway, but no, Good dudes. I really enjoyed the career path that I had of being able to share life saving lessons, mostly in the survival, the evasion, and the escape realm. I actually never really taught the resistance portion. Know a lot of great guys that did, but you can imagine, for good reason, they kind of keep the training segregated there, because even though guys can be qualified to teach the resistance side of the house, they don't teach that at the same time they teach the field stuff. And it just kind of makes sense. If you were that guy that was slapping you silly on Tuesday, you wouldn't really give a rip what I said on Friday. So we just kind of keep that segregated.
Yeah.
And that way there's just a little bit more clarity, and you can really take it to the next level and try to be more of a specialist in your individual field. So that was something that I really did enjoy about that as well.
So can you tell us, like, there are going to be like 3 people who are listening to this who are going to be like, what the fuck is SERE? What is this? Can you break it down?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those 3 individuals listening right now, I'm sorry you never had military experience, but that's okay. We're gonna break it down for you. So the survival, evasion.
I'm sorry, Amber from California.
Yeah, but it's basically all the different branches have a version of their SERE school, and it is intended for all those who are high risk of isolation. And it's for the Air Force. It's usually guys who are pilots, guys who are aircrew, and also our battlefield airmen. The direct action guys that are going to be behind enemy lines, going to be cut off, and they're going to need to know, how do they survive? How do they evade if there's a military force coming after them? And if they get rolled up, how do they resist interrogation and then escape and get back home? How do they get recovered, right? So they're actually probably going to change in the near future the SERE specialist handle to PR, or personnel recovery specialist, just because within the Air Force, it's a little bit different. And they really take the time to put in a lot more training into the instructors. For all the other branches, Lord love them, they don't care as much about personnel recovery. I don't know why. Maybe because the Air Force is better. I don't know. But it's just they will.
I mean, you put $18 million into training someone.
Yeah. So we also have better budgets, that doesn't hurt anything, but essentially the Air Force was born out of the Army crashing too many damn planes after World War II. They just we got to have a higher standard IQ. So that's kind of where the Air Force came from. But with that said, we with those pilots and aircrew, right? If they go down behind enemy lines, it's a very clear situation. They need to get back home. They are not an infantryman on a battlefield that just got lost somewhere. It's a little bit more hazy, the definition of an isolating situation for the Army, for the Marines, because they are frontline troops. They are intended to engage with the enemy. And just because you got cut off and there's not a QRF like 5 minutes away doesn't mean that the war needs to be put on hold and everybody comes rescue you, right? It's a little bit different in the Air Force whenever somebody gets shot down or they have an in-flight emergency, right? Now that's clearly a situation where they're going to need help and they're going to need to get back home to friendly lines. And so our job is to prepare them for that. And that's what I did primarily in the military is training them through a 3-week school. And to get to that point, we had over a year of training, and it's pretty much, I would say categorically, the world's premier survival training school. I don't know anybody else, any other country for that matter, that actually goes into such depth of going through all the different biomes. I mean, we spent time in the Arctic Circle up in the northernmost tip of Alaska putting together igloos just so that we know what 50 degrees below zero felt like. You know what I'm saying? We were taught, we didn't just read how to survive in a raft in a book. We were flying down little small, river canyons with these rushing rapids in a little dinghy boat. We were out there on the Oregon coast in the waves, spending a night out there on a raft and then having to make landfall. We spent time in literally every place that you can think of, from tropics to woodline Arctic to temperate zones. And it's a little bit different, right? Whenever you're thinking about your meeting your basic needs in the Arctic as opposed to the ocean, as opposed to the coastline, right? There's different ways to procure your food and purify your water and build shelters and, signal, create fires, all those things. There's challenges that are unique to each biome. So instead of reading them in a book, after going through a 3-week school, turning around and teaching it to other people like the other branches do, we had to go through like a year-long pipeline. And that was really just a brilliant, crazy, awesome experience that kind of unparalleled. It's kind of unique too. And I think that's one reason why SERE guys historically are really a tight-knit group. I mean, there's literally like reunions where guys from graduating in the 60s, I kid you not, are still coming to these reunions and rubbing shoulders with young guys having the same basic experience. And they're just like, hey, man, I've been in your shoes, man. That's cool. What are you guys up to now? You know what I'm saying? So it's a huge blessing to be part of that brotherhood.
Man, that's actually incredible. It's something I haven't really thought about. We've talked briefly about SERE instruction, but I didn't know that it was an entire pipeline where you join up to become an instructor. It's actually kind of foreign to me. Normally, it's you get to a certain rank. You apply to do this. You spend all that time watching PowerPoints. Then you spend all that time making PowerPoints.
Yeah, and that's also a unique thing with the Air Force.
Considerably more interesting.
How many other positions in the DoD, period, can you sign up to be an instructor? Like you say, you usually have to do at least 4 years service, make staff, and then you got a shot. You might be able to cross-train over and be an instructor of some kind. Yeah.
The idea of how to survive in some of the worst biomes known to man, or even, the forest in your backyard, that doesn't really change. I imagine like the SOPs and how to kick a door down shift every 5 years or so, depending on, what structures you're anticipated to come across. But how to purify water? Not really.
Sure. Yeah, I would say that the biggest change in our training methodologies and what we're actually bringing to the table is more of what we're posturing for, right? And CENTCOM, with the start of GWAT, we really owned the sky. And if you were to take a guess at the standard time, with the average time from a critical incident, somebody's on the ground, to the time we have them picked up and they're heading back home or to the local base, how long do you think that would be?
Probably, GWAT, Iraq, Afghanistan, a couple hours?
Yeah, 4 hours actually is the average, which if you think about it, they're not even over for an entire night. If 4 hours, that's remarkably fast.
That's a Lord of the Rings director's cut.
Yeah, exactly. And now, with the other conflicts that we have been in, decades ago, all the way back to Vietnam. And if we're looking at near peer conflicts or peer conflicts with countries like China and Iran, North Korea, these are different problem sets altogether. We don't own the skies, which becomes an entirely different problem solution. And what we're wargaming is that the average time to pick up and isolate personnel is something scary. Like we're talking 28 days plus, right? Over a month sometimes. And the bottom line is that some people just will not be able to be recovered. They're just too deep in country. So it's long-term survival is making a return in where our focus is, if that makes sense.
Of course. The idea of having to use these skills in a near-peer conflict, especially now seeing what's happening in Ukraine, scary stuff.
Yes. So like you say, the overarching principles of survival, they don't change, but where the focus is. And then also, like, there's some differences in TTPs, right? If you're fighting a bunch of Hajis, where the best technology they have is a cell phone and maybe a radar SAM, that they don't really have the technology to ping your GPS or catch the frequency and block it, or potentially spoof the signal coming back to you. That's not really within their realm. We we had a major shift in the balance of powers whenever the enemy is as capable as us whenever it comes to electronic warfare and other things where, there's a little bit change in what we would actually do and what we would advocate for isolated personnel and how they radio, how they signal, what their posture is, and how do they evade different kinds of technology like UAVs with their thermal cameras. And we're also thinking about troops on the ground with potential dog teams. There's other things that are a little bit more daunting than the things that we have been facing in CENTCOM.
This week's episode is brought to you by Two Grunts Inc. Two Grunts Inc. is a veteran-owned and operated rifle manufacturer crafting firearms with professionals and prepared citizens in mind. All of their parts and components are developed, tested, and manufactured to perform using the most standard of mil-spec 5.56 ammunition. Purpose-built work guns is their motto, and rifles made to last is their ethos. With high-end components and materials used in all of their rifles, like their 4150 CMV nitride-treated barrels utilizing a 223 Wild chamber and a 1-in-8 twist, optimized for both M855 and M193 ammunition, achieving 1 MOA or better with most manufactured mil-spec ammos. Bolts made out of 9-310 super alloy steel and carriers made from shot-peened 8-620 steel, maximized for increased toughness, wear resistance, and strength. Each and every part has been meticulously thought out, deliberately tested, and expertly manufactured and installed. Each rifle also comes standard with a 45 or 90 ambidextrous fire controls, gas buster ambi charging handles, and many other high-end functional parts. Check out their website, twogruntsinc.com, that's TWO as in two, and GRUNTS as in rifleman by trade, INC.com, to purchase one of their rifles, or other parts for sale. Use the code CBRN, that's Charlie Bravo Romeo November, to get $50 off your order. That's CBRN to get $50 off your order. Be sure to also check out their Instagram and YouTube at twogrunts_inc to learn more about them, their rifles, and their other products. Once again, that's code CBRN to receive $50 off your entire purchase at twogruntsinc.com. Thanks guys for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, no, the idea of near-peer conflict with a developed nation like China or Iran or any, insert anyone, you never know what the future brings. It's horrifying to me. And as you said, the idea of thermal drones or troops on the ground with technological capability to jam your transmission or clone your frequencies or, hunt you through the woods with a loitering drone squad. All of that stuff is horrifying. I remember seeing the headline a couple of years ago where the first, at least confirmed, internationally, the first one we've acknowledged, person was killed by loitering drone munitions. It scared the absolute shit out of me. But yeah, how has that changed how you guys train? I imagine that everything is war-gamed and thought about, as it's happening. And I think all eyes are on, Ukraine right now, which is the first near-peer conflict we've had in quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of our generals is famous for his quote of "accelerate change or die." It's just with, I believe it was another general of ours that has been predicting a conflict, a real live conflict. I mean, there's already been essentially like a Cold War with the country of China. They are not friends of ours, have not been for quite some time, but they are predicting a shooting war with a peer country like China by 2025. And so these things are not just a back burner concern. It's a very pressing military concern with their interests in Taiwan and our commitment to defend them. I've got a buddy over in Japan right now that is his entire job is wargaming and trying to decide what are the best policies to put in place and how many guys could we reasonably secure after having some kind of a, being shot down kind of incident. The numbers are quite honestly a little bit scary whenever you look at the different predictions. But, the truth is that we just haven't in this country, we haven't seen a pure conflict since World War II. We really don't. Those of us who are left don't really know what that kind of conflict is like. We haven't really been fighting for our home, and we're overdue for it, honestly. I hate to say that, but it's just kind of a scary reality. But yeah, evading evading those kinds of technological means that they have is no small task. Recently, by the way, did you know that Grand Thumb, the YouTube sensation, Mike Jones, he was a SERE specialist before he became Attack P, and it was when he was still a SERE specialist. His class was 20. I want to say it's 1502. I could be mistaken with that, but I know people who were classmates of his. And it was while he was still a SERE guy that he was starting to produce his first YouTube videos. But he recently came out with a series called Dangerous in the Mountains. And essentially what he's been doing is he's been packaging together the things that we teach very similarly, slightly tailored and fine-tuned and altered a little bit, but essentially the same kind of things that we would teach in the schoolhouse, in the SERE schoolhouse there at Fairchild. Things that are valuable, for not only our military personnel, but also for civilians. They have a right to know, based off of, the Second Amendment as well, that they should be able to have the same kind of capabilities if they ever need to evade a near peer. And it's not out of the realm of possibility with so many tens of thousands of military-age males coming over the border from China that we could have a real disruption in our civility at any given time, honestly. So evading detection from near-peer enemies is something that people should know. They should be equipped with that knowledge. One of the leading things being that thermal imaging from, and also really good long-range cameras from drones, right? You have that passive intelligence gathering that can be hidden. You don't know when you're being detected by them. And that's one thing that, just like they tell you in sniper school, always assume you are under observation. Just realize there's probably an eye in the sky that's looking towards you. And so you have to posture yourself accordingly. You have to try to put barriers between you and them. You'll be lucky if you hear them. And most likely, you can always assume that there is something that is going to be trying to find you and track you with ISR or also satellites, right? The speed of intelligence gathering from satellites is doing nothing but increasing. But drones definitely bring that capability as well.
That is horrifying. Genuinely.
Yeah.
Because I think about the possibility of a modern conflict and seeing all of the science fiction bullshit that America is capable of and does all of the time. We tracked this man walking his camel back. He's a suspected terrorist. We've just used, probably several cumulative $1 billion worth of technology to track this man back into his mud hut. Let's JDAM it.
Right.
And then you think about it, it's like, oh, wow, we are not the only country that can do this at all. I've played The Division. I know how this ends. Sorry, continue.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the thing is with the ever-growing presence of greater and greater technology, that becomes a concern, not just whenever you're, trying to be dangerous in the mountains like the Grand Thumb series, which is definitely worth
series.
Watching. Yes. Yeah. He's done an incredible job, and the subject matter experts he's brought on to help illustrate that has been very helpful too. But also in an urban setting, with the kind of technology that China is kind of, paving the way for, where they not only have facial recognition, which we're very aware of, and, for up close, they have the retinal scans, and but they also have gait tracking technology such that they say that each person's individual gait is as recognizable as their thumbprint. They can tell, does someone have cellular emissions just walking down the street? If they don't, that's kind of sus because everybody should have a cellular emission. So why does this person stand out and they don't have a cell phone on them that is easily tracked and mic turns on, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of ways that they can skin that cat, but evading detection is a big part of knowing what the capabilities of your opponent are. Just like Sun Tzu says, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know yourself or the enemy. You're going to lose every time. If you know just yourself, for every victory, you're going to have a loss. If you know both the enemy and yourself, you need not fear the outcome in 100 battles. I butchered that quote, right? And it's translation, but
I did not notice you butchered it, so you shouldn't have drawn attention to it. I think maybe you would have been fine.
Yeah, but the intent there is that we need to understand our opponent's capabilities to be able to come up with a counter tactic. And will those counter tactics work? Sometimes. Absolutely. And depending on how effective we are at applying them, it's just basic things. It's just that, being good at the basics, standard infantryman stuff. It's nothing necessarily wazoo. It's just a little bit more adherence to the same basic principles, a little bit different tweak on it, but essentially it's the same things that guys have already been doing with a couple of curveballs. So it's totally possible. You just need to know how. And that's something we're actually going to be, for the urban application, we're going to be touching on a little bit in the urban evasion class coming up that I'm really hoping you can make it to.
Yeah, I'm really hoping I should be there for it. Everything's free. That's a PSOC. PSOC. It's a very unfortunate name. I love you, Aaron. This is such an unfortunate name. PSOC in Spokane, Washington. Yes. You mentioned when is the course? I say right after I say that I should be free for it. I saw the course, put it in the back of my head. I'm like, yes, okay, I will make this. Yes. And then I'm going to remember again like a week before it happens or the day of.
No, it's listed on our site, American Reconstruction Concepts, but it's going to be listed on PSOC soon, I believe. It's just about to drop. So that's the third weekend in September, the 20th through 22nd. But
excellent.
It'll be a good time.
Well, I will see you there, and maybe, I don't know, someone else, if there's someone in Northern Washington that wants to pop along to this. Anyways, that is something that we don't touch on very much, urban evasion and the idea of SERE in, a city. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that a little? Is that something you actually cover in SERE School these days?
It is. It's not something that is as comprehensive, but I believe that there are measures being taken to kind of step that up because it is such a necessary part of evasion as well as survival if you're behind enemy lines, because literally the most likely way of getting people recovered in near-peer conflict is just like what we see back in World War II, where you have these underground railroads that essentially it was the indigenous people that were sympathetic to our cause that would help foster people. If you can imagine, you are a Jew living in Nazi Germany, right? It's going to be very similar circumstances for somebody that is hated in an enemy city, right? So understanding how to when's the best time to move, how to disguise yourself, how to lose a tail, how to know if you're being followed in the first place, right? How do you securely communicate with different people that maybe have never seen you before and they need to validate that you're the right person? There's a lot that goes into securely being able to navigate through an urban area, because the most dangerous security risk out there is other people. And being able to maneuver through those situations and try to avoid the checkpoints and the traps and the different surveillance that could get you caught is a really key part of that. So those are some of the different things that we're going to be looking at, as well as we're going to add a little bit of escape stuff, because why not? You got to set it in scenario and actually test those skills out, So those are some of the things that we're going to be looking at in that class. But also, I had the opportunity to go through some different cities and do some real urban evasion, but that was because I was an instructor and I was supposed to know more than I taught. For that, the standard schoolhouse, people go through a mock city, and we just kind of talk about principles. But it's difficult to imagine you're in Jalalabad whenever everything looks like a connex and a military construct. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of hard to, using your imagination takes you out of it a little bit. Yeah. That being said, the idea of you just brown hair, 6 foot, white dude walking through Jalalabad with, I don't know, a mustache on. It's very funny to me.
Yes, it is. It was actually how one isolated personnel got picked up is because he knew he couldn't evade through that city, and I forget there was some city in Iraq where Thomas Hamill, who actually did not go through SERE School, but he had a good head on his shoulders, and after he got rolled up, he could get out, he could bust out, but he knew he couldn't get through the city effectively. So what did he do? He waited until he heard a diesel convoy, and he's like, yeah, that's our boys. And whenever he busted out and ran over to them, the way that he actually authenticated was he peeled his shirt up to show his crispy white, hairy American stomach, and some 18-year-old on a 50 cal, this Madhu swings over and he sees this guy, with a big white hairy belly. He's like, oh, that's an American. Hop in, buddy. So you got to kind of think outside the box, sometimes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a really, really racist thought of just how to IFF during like a near peer conflict with China.
Yeah.
Just like, show me your eyes.
That's right. Oh, dude,
it's like the 7 foot tall fucking like alligator herder from Louisiana with like bright blonde hair and a 75 IQ. Like he's not making it through Beijing.
Oh my gosh. We ran across the same thing in Vietnam, where guys were trying to evade through that populace, and it's very difficult. Yeah. Some guys got creative. They actually crushed up iodine to give their skin a little bit of a yellowy tint, which was creative. And then they slumped over and tried to look like, ladies covering their head. And, the time of day is crucial too. You don't want to be walking around in broad daylight with everybody seeing your white American face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, bearded 6 foot dude walking, a head taller than legitimately everyone else. It's like my friend Jake just got back from Japan. He's just, see from one side of the subway to the other.
Yes. Yeah. 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 My wife and I honeymooned in Thailand. That was quite a trip, but my smaller American wife, bless her heart, was almost a head over a lot of the Thai. And so that was encouraging for her, I think. But yeah, man, it's there's a lot of neat things that come out of SERE School. I would say a lot of unique kind of perspectives. There's not many other places where you can really think about what would it look like in a real situation in a foreign country where everybody hates me. What would I do? What would you do? It's not something you usually get thrown into once in your life, but if it does, you need to know how to act. So, so a lot of this training we talk about is the best insurance policy that we hope you never need. And honestly, I would say that goes for a lot of defensive training too. None of us who carry a gun responsibly are ever really wanting to use it. We just need to be prepared to use it and use it well. So it goes hand in hand with things like urban evasion, with survival training, with all these things. It's essentially that parachute in a plane that you hope never has to crash land.
Yeah. It's the fire extinguisher parable.
Yes, exactly. So, but if you need to use it, it's vital that not only you have it, but you know how to use it and use it well, because under crisis, as you know, it's not the time to go through your first rodeo.
Yeah. It's probably going to be the worst couple days of your life, so. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious to hear, because you were talking about making igloos before. My mind jumped to the Grunts episode, I think the first one, where he talked about icicles coming out of his penis. Minus 50.
Yeah.
I want to hear some serious stories. I want to hear some of the fucking gossip.
Right.
Yeah.
Shoot, man, it's just hard to pick. There's so many.
And they're all amazing. And then, you know what? We can have more than one episode.
Sure.
Michael, you are more than welcome to share more. Give us some of your favorites.
Okay. All right. So I'll tell you one, and it was kind of unique because I had, well, let's go with this. So in different cultures, you have different rites of passage, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you finally realize that you belong there, it's usually a painful moment. Sometimes, it picks at your pride. Sometimes it could be physically painful, right? It's a little bit of both in the SERE community. In fact, after going through over a year-long training and then trying to get to the point where they can actually trust you to take a dozen guys out into the middle of nowhere, who all, by the way, are second lieutenants that would love to try to do suicidal acts just because I don't know why. I really don't. I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, they watched Behind Enemy Lines, Band of Brothers. They internalized a little too much of it.
Exactly, and so you're trying to take care of them. Oh, and by the way, you might have a lieutenant colonel that has needs the training too after 20 years in a different career field, right? And so, as young as a senior airman, you might need to take them out and actually lead them. And before they let you do that, there's a very intensive certification process, right? So as soon as you get in, though, you really don't have any idea until all your brothers basically welcome you in via a SERE rite of passage, right? And it
sounds really ominous.
It kind of is, and because you're not told, there's not a email that says, congrats, here's your certification. There's not even an official process. It's just like the moment that a bunch of dudes surround you, collapse on you, and then, next thing you know, you're going to have to get out of some kind of restraints and fend off, some tough love, we'll call it that. And it's usually unique to the person too. It's not always, it's not a standard thing. So you're never quite sure what to expect, but let me just say that you always want to have some kind of escape tool hidden on your person. It just behooves you. Yeah. Big facts.
It behooves you.
Yes. Yeah. Let's use that sergeant word. Anyway, and that's all well and good. If for coming in, it's standard ops. If you're leaving the unit though, and you're someone who's liked, and cared for, and oh man, they've got to show you just how much they like you whenever you're leaving the unit, and it's much worse. It's so much worse, dude. So anyway, I heard
do you like I just assume you wake up on an AC-130. Strapped to a parachute, in a country that most people have never heard of. Sorry, continue.
Right. That would be awesome. I don't think it's quite that epic. It's definitely on that scale of scary and daunting, though. So anyway, whenever I knew I was leaving my unit, and they knew I was leaving the unit. That's the worst part. You can't hide that. You know what I'm saying? It's like everybody knows when your last trip is, right? And so it's tradition on your last trip, something is going to happen. Well, I heard from my buddy about a legend in the career field who actually was able to evade his compatriots, evade those who teach evasion and who hunt down students for a living, right? And he was able to evade them the entire time. He built these shelters that he disappeared in, and there's he was that ghost that he did his job, he turned in his students, and he disappeared. So he never had that exit, in style like they wanted to. Anyway, so my buddy was telling me about his plans, and he's like, I'm going to do this really crafty thing. And I'm like, okay.
Don't tell you. Don't.
Right. But see, he was telling me because he was scheduled to get out after me. So,
okay.
I was his safe. He was just confiding in me. Right. So I'm like, all right, dude. More power to you. I hope it works out for you. Well, turns out, kind of got delayed. And so I was getting out before him, and so anyway, the idea ran past my head, and it took weeks for this setup. I literally I had I went out to site survey. Where's going to be the best place to stash a getaway vehicle. I was coordinating with, multiple people to like lay everything out. And so the day finally came. Everybody was kind of, ominously threatening to like, hey, something might happen, at any time. Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I never came back to instructor camp. I was out there, with my dudes out there in the woods, which is not too odd. It's somewhat standard on last trip. But whenever it came to it, I told all my students, hey guys, here's the point where you got to be. I knew that they would get there. I set them up for success. And I just kind of, handed off my extra equipment to the lead guy. And I made the mistake of writing a little note in there. And I said, hey guys, basically the note was at the bottom of this bag that he was not supposed to go through. And it was a very simple message, very concise. But for whatever reason, he decides to go through this equipment bag. He finds this note. He reads the note, and he gets worried because the wording in there saying goodbye, he was like, man, my instructor was stoic. And then he thinks back to his prior career days of he had actually seen a real suicide note.
Shit.
So he has a flashback, chimes in on the radio and talks to all my buddies over this radio that he was not supposed to use unless it was emergency. Right. And he's like, I think I've got a suicide note from my instructor. And they're like, whoa, read the note. They read it and then they understand like, oh, he's just trying to put the slip on us. Right. And so they literally come back and start using some of their skills to try to get information out of my students on where I'm at. And they're all like, and I didn't tell all my students a thing. They're completely in the dark, and they're like, guys, even if we knew where he was at, like, wouldn't do you any good. He's got a ghillie suit. He's a ghost. We haven't seen him for half of our evasion movement, and so I was just making it to the getaway vehicle, which I was supposed to have like 6 hours lead time before they found out I was gone, when I get a call from my supervisor. Well, that was not good news.
At that point, dude, you do not pick up.
No, I didn't. I absolutely didn't. And I was actually so strategic that I went above my supervisor to his supervisor and got leave approved for the entire rest of the week, which was my last week. Right. And so they were not going to see me again. Not until I was a civilian. He said, I can't be mad at you because it was my idea. Anyway, I eventually got away. It actually worked. I almost got discovered. And they eventually put on a going away party for me at his house, right? My buddy's house. And it was supposed to be for me and another guy. But the other guy was, what do you call somebody that chickens out?
A pussy?
Something like that, right? So it was just me and all these dudes, and so it was a little bit more tailored when they finally did give me a farewell giveaway, send off. Yeah, okay. It was awesome. It was great, bonding time. Well, we'll put it that way. It was a bonding time.
I'm curious. I'm so curious. All of this is such ominous coded language.
That's going to be something that we talk about, like with a beer in private sometime. Probably not on the airways.
Yeah,
but, we'll just leave it with that. It was a good time
after Urban Evasion.
Yeah, exactly.
On September 22nd, I probably fucked it up.
Somewhere around there. Yeah,
something. September.
Exactly.
I want to hear more SERE stories. That was freaking good. I swear to God, I could just sit down and listen to you talk about this stuff all day.
Oh, dude, there are so many stories. I'll remind me too. I'll share with you the time that we tried to put one over on our cadre, and three different units that never talked to each other. We all tried to get away with the exact same crap, which was strategic, right? It wasn't just dirtbagging it, but it was technically against the rules. We all got discovered, and it was on our last day of field. We kind of wished we didn't do that, but I'll share that story with you too. Well, we'll see. What happened is that we were out there, and it was Arctic woodline. So we're about 0 degrees in the Kniksu National Forest, and it was our last day of field. We had only to pick up and head back to base in the morning. And so when the cadre were signing off at camp, they were like, hey guys, meet up such and such time in the morning, make sure all the gear's there, and big boy rules. Well, they had never told us big boy rules before. It's always, you will do this, you will do that. So we're all like,
what does that even mean?
I think what we're going to do is we're going to tear everything down tonight, strategically stage everything by the road, and sleep next to the fire circle instead of those crappy shelters we built. So, it was like, let's just do that. It'll be easier in the morning. So to a man, we all decided this is a great idea. And we never talked with the other sections out there. But one of the cadre had to come back, and one by one they found all of us. We were working till probably 2 a.m. to fix that little mistake. And so, and then they tell us, oh man, we can't believe you guys did this, and we're kind of well, it's
3 different groups that didn't talk to each other all came to that conclusion. They wanted you to.
Almost. Oh, well.
Yeah.
It was a good time. The tough crap binds people together. Whenever you're in it as a team, there's nothing that can replace those experiences, So it was worth it, honestly.
I think so too. Shit, man, it's a problem. I have a memory. Are you familiar with Finding Nemo? Dory.
Yeah. You're a natural blue. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Was it Blue or Dory? The short memory one. I'm kind of proving my own point here.
Yep. I understand.
Yeah. But to see the SERE stories off, I demand a third. The listeners demand it. I'm going to speak on their behalf.
Oh my gosh! Well, what kind of genre you want? We're talking
there's genre choice. How about horror?
Horror.
There was one that Mike told us of a strange woodsman that left effigies of them in their camp.
Interesting.
Makes me seem that really seemed like that just happens. That's normal. Is that just a SERE thing?
Well, there's wild and crazy stuff out there, man. I know dudes who are like, Sasquatch is so stupid, yada yada yada, and then the next week they're like, dude, Sasquatch is real. I legit saw him. And then there's also a lot of different characters of the woods out there. It's one of my favorite things is to start talking with people around a campfire after a long day of survival training. It's just how's this for an icebreaker? What do you think about Lantern Man? And they're just like, I've never heard of him. And so then it's like, well, Lantern Man legend goes back to the 60s, and there's been so many sightings. In fact, there's actually a report from students from every element. We're talking 7 different groups that have no way of communicating with each other 2 years ago, I want to say. This is about 2022 time frame, and it was one of my buddies' teams. I happened to be out there that same night, but I was sleeping like a log, so it wasn't me. But Lantern Man is one of those people. Characters, I think would be a better term, of the wood that is just cloaked in mystery. People sight them. Weird things happen, and it's really, really hard to explain without thinking about supernatural just being a reality that interfaces with our lives, maybe more so than we want it to. So, yeah.
What is the weirdest thing you personally have seen in the woods?
Personally,
this is a loaded question. Yes. As much as I want to learn more about Lantern Man and then possibly become his friend, I want to know what you have seen. The weirdest experience you have had in the woods.
The weirdest, honestly, just random contacts with different animals out there. For example, one time I was, we have a latrine at our instructor camp, and this one time I had I was the guy that had to make sure none of the stuff disappeared. So I was back there, had my radio, and my buddy hits me up on radio, even though he just saw me run back to the latrine, right? And he's like, hey, you back there? And I'm like, yeah, I'm still here. And he's like, oh, good. I just want to let you know that the medics saw a very large cougar running straight for you. I'm like, well, thanks for the heads up. I'm going to finish my business.
Jesus.
I think it was the exact same trip that another guy radioed. He was coming back into camp, and about 5 minutes go by, and I hear boom, crash, step, crack, boom. And I'm just like, man, he is really loud right now. And I look back, and I'm like locked eyeball to eyeball with this mother moose with her baby, like right there next to her. Yeah, it's about 30 feet away. It was close. It could have been 40 feet, but it wasn't that far. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, yeah, I'm not moving. I think I'm just going to sit right here. And she eventually moved on, so that was cool. It's just neat experiences, seeing wolverine dens, cougar dens, hear wolves on every side of you, and all you have is a bolt knife, and you're just hoping that, they find something else to eat that night. So it's just a lot of really cool interactions with nature, I would say, and the different creatures out there.
The idea of being stalked by a mountain lion is one of my waking nightmares. That is horrifying to me. Just a cougar, anything like that. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that ended the way it did, because fuck.
So
I would not be doing your urban evasion course, yeah?
No joke. I have a buddy, oddly enough, not a SERE guy, but a local country boy who lives basically in the same woods where we always did training. And he, I want to say 2 months ago, had a full-size cougar drop on him from a tree, right? Just drop right on top of him, and didn't tear his throat out. He kind of slumped over on top of him, and the dude, the kick-ass that he was, he basically boxed the cougar and to the point where the cougar slashed him up like pretty hardcore, slashed him up.
Oh man!
But he got away with several large scratches, and basically kind of held him at arm's length and knocked him, boxed his ears. He's just a fighter of a dude. I would not want to do that. Not with a knife, not with a broadsword. And this guy he's bare hands. Yeah, he's a tough guy. I got to take my hat off to him. He's like 18. Gosh.
Yeah, holy shit. How many people can say they punched a cougar?
Right. Yeah. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. Still, that's badass. I imagine you kind of meet all kinds of weird and wacky people. Do you think being a SERE instructor attracts a certain personality type?
Oh, 100%, dude. Yeah, you say meet weird and wacky. Dude, I'm one of those weird and wacky people.
Why do you think I'm asking?
Dude, to be a SERE guy, you have to have a very unique personality. I would say, some core characteristics, right? Some core traits for anybody thinking about signing up, which, by the way, it's a terrific ride. If you were bent that way, you should totally do it. I had nothing but a stellar experience being in the Air Force as a SERE guy. You have to... One of
the branches of Air Force where you don't get Netflix all the
time. Yeah, big facts. You have to basically embrace the suck. And when I say embrace the suck, you have to be willing to go without sleep for multiple days. I know you do that just for fun.
It's not fun. I just hate myself.
You have to be willing to go without hardly any calories. And when I say that, I haven't gone without 0 calories for more than 48, 36 hours, honestly. But when I say few calories, that could be like 200 a day, for multiple days doing aggressive work without sleep. So that's really where the challenge lies. You can still snack. There's still some stuff you can eat, but there's not a lot of that. So just the internal drive to never say die is a big part of it, but also you have to have enough internal motivation to keep the fire stoked, keep positive mental attitude. As much as I hate to say it, that's really key. I
don't think that's a bad thing. It's really easy to get demotivated when you haven't eaten in 3 days, you're not sleeping, and you're being hunted by a superior fighting force.
Yes. Yeah. And then you also have to have a passion to teach. Like whenever you're dehydrated and you're cold and you haven't slept well and you don't feel good, you have to still be able to bring the energy, because whenever you are talking to students, right, and they just woke up out of a frozen sleeping bag and they have to, you have to build a fire for them. You have to heat up the fluids for them. And then you have to bring the energy, because if you don't, they're just going to hate their lives and not get anything out of the course. Literally, the rule we use is, as instructors, is generally, and you probably found this is true for yourself too, is like whatever energy level you bring, you can expect your students to reflect maybe half, right? So you were definitely setting the tone there, and that's a big thing. A lot of guys get disillusioned. Maybe they come in as being a TAC P or SR or PJ reject, and they didn't get selected, but they're a tough dude, and they get another refire, maybe be a SERE guy. And they're disappointed because we're not kicking indoors. We're not doing a direct action role. We're basically professional instructors helping people in survival, evasion, escape, you name it. And so being a personnel recovery advocate specialist, it's different than picking up a gun and running down range and knowing you're going to get in a firefight. It's more of a support role. Now they are thinking about, for select guys, bringing that back where they can be integrated into different teams. But characteristically, SERE guys have just been that instructor role. And so taking it very seriously and really knowing the material and getting it to people day in, day out with a very hectic schedule. That's really what it takes. And so I would say one thing that annoys people that I do constantly is, the worse the situation gets, the more hilarious it is to me. As long as people aren't dying, I just think that's pretty funny. That's my survival mechanism. That's how I get through the harder crap and not let it really wear me down. So it's different, right? Most people aren't that way.
I mean, it's a pretty good survival instinct to have, I think.
It annoys the heck out of my wife sometimes. Mechanism. Yeah, she's like, why are you laughing? I'm like, because it's so funny, babe. She's like, it is not. I'm like, well, nobody's died yet, so we're good.
Laugh and the world laughs with you. Cry and you cry alone.
Yeah. Big facts there.
So now that you've left the military, for whatever reason, I thought you were still in a reserve capacity. I think I misinterpreted one of the things you said in person. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about what the transition has been like teaching civilians, and what, the state of the training empire in America is like in your perspective.
Yes. So the transition has been a wild ride. It's been good. I think missing the brotherhood is a common thing that everybody struggles with. Thankfully, I didn't move too far away from my base, and so I still get to see my best boys and still get to have a part in their life. Also, I don't know, it was probably my bad in communication, but maybe part of the misconception came from contracting still on base. That would, I think at one of the times that we spoke, I was doing a contracting gig there for kind of mentoring and training up some of the young guys there, which is awesome. I kind of kept a hand in it and still touch base with my mentors and friends there. So, it's totally different teaching civilians, totally different. And that's one reason why I still contract instruct for different companies around the States. There's a company in Montana and New Hampshire, of all places. And it just, opportunities arise, right? Whenever you're, I hate to be cliche there, but you remember the famous line from Taken, right? I have a very particular set of skills. It's a unique set of skills. So different people are like, hey, we could use some of that here. So I still keep my hand in it. I still have the opportunity to train military units. Honestly, I wanted to put a plug there in for LEO guys, SAR guys, as well as MIL guys who are listening to the podcast. If you have a need for SERE related training, that's something that we do. And actually, I've had multiple units at this point now who have been able to get their leadership to sign off on a training package, and so that's mobile. We can provide that in other states, as well as we have a great training center here in Washington. So anyway, that is a possibility for guys. The transition has been good. It is totally different teaching civilians. I guess I love it and hate it. And the difference you could probably understand. I still love seeing the light bulb come on in people's face and just the appreciation. And dude, the SERE guys have been known as some of the best trainers in the DoD because it's such an intensive process. There's such a high standard. And so then going into the civilian market and training some of those people, they're like, wow, this is some of the best training I've had. This is amazing instruction and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, it's kind of average for what I'm used to, but but I still have fun with it. And so I love their appreciation. Seeing people's lives change is why I get up in the morning, I guess. So that part has been great. It's different, though. There's not the military regimen. So you might have 20 people say, I will be there, and 3 people show up. And it's like, whoa, guys. Whoa. So we've had to kind of tailor some of we generally have people pay for the class at least a week in advance, and whenever there's a little bit of financial commitment, then people usually follow up. So there's been some different things. Honestly, marketing has been an interesting challenge to me as
it's something you really don't have to do in the military.
No, you don't. People at the register office, I never gave them any credit whatsoever, and they just kept us full the whole time. All I had to do was teach. It was amazing. So that part has been different, but with that said, we've had really positive interactions and great opportunities come up. So how it all started really was a brainchild, a concept, together with my friend Lucas Olson, who's actually there in Lewiston, Idaho. He's not too far away from you.
Not at all.
And I was talking with him, years ago. And I was not thinking about the military at that time. And I was telling him because he has such an awesome and crazy non-standard background. And then I had combined with my passion for training guys already. I was like, hey, we should really start a training school. We should teach guys how to use their handgun, how to survive, how to use combatives, all these different things, right? Because we were in the training world, but we weren't severely credentialed. Honestly, the NRA instructor certification is kind of a joke, right? It is,
man. It's. I'll say it on the record. I don't give a shit. This is my show. Fuck 'em. It is terrible. It's like the skills you need to get an NRA instructor certification is basically like, don't put it in your mouth, or if you do, don't let anyone see.
Right.
It's bad.
Do you have a pulse afterwards? Yeah. Or
it's the kind of stuff where it's like I found in the civilian world, 90% of trainers follow one of two things, which is like completely incompetent or treats the gun like it's a dangerous snake that will go off on its own and hurt you, which I understand because you have to tailor things to the lowest common denominator, but
Sure.
it's still not a good level of training that I think people should aspire to.
Yes, it's not the cutting edge. It's not teaching up to your audience to help them climb the ladder of excellence and move the peg in their own life so that they can continue to progress at an aggressive rate. That's I always view the time with any students as very short and potentially my last impression on them. I want to give them as much as I can in as short a time as possible, such that if they had to face a truly life-threatening scenario the very next day or even that night, I want them to stand ready, be prepared for that outcome, and be better for it, such that they would survive and they would prevail. So it's I always feel that internal pressure, if you will, to give them everything I've got as fast as I can. At the same time, you can't overwhelm people, which is a tendency I have to fight is over teaching, right? But with that said, it's a sacred duty. It's an honor, and it's a responsibility that should not be taken lightly. If you take it upon yourself to equip people with skills, with mentality, with tactics, even, which oftentimes will trump that skill and are vitally important. If you're going to teach them, then it better be the cutting edge. It better be the best that we can possibly offer. And it better be presented in a format that they can grasp, that they can walk away with. So many people, I hate to see it in the civilian instructor world, where a lot of times there's the true, quiet, humble professional is few and far between. It's just a lot of times it seems like people are either stroking their own ego, or B, they have the skills, they can't translate it well. You know what I'm saying? It's a rare combination where someone's truly gifted, and then they can actually carry that across to people so that they can own that and take a new skill on and make it their own. So, so I guess kind of got off on a rabbit trail there, but the reason why
you're okay.
Years ago, I went to my friend and I said, we need to do this, is because I knew that there would be people that we could reach, that we could help, that if we didn't put ourselves out there in that space, they would not be affected. And to me, that I just feel that responsibility so much that to me that's unacceptable. I need to make those people around me better. And I need to grow constantly, continually, because failing to do so is a failure of my personal calling and responsibility. It's not for everyone, right? But it is for me. And so, and he told me, like that we got 8/10 of a great idea. The only problem is we're not properly credentialed, and who's going to listen to guys who don't have a law enforcement or military background? And he says, dude, I've got a family, but you can still look at the military. And that's actually when I went to talk to a recruiter and I found the SERE specialist was training in my backyard and I didn't even know it. And I was like, dang, this is nuts. You can sign up and you can be an instructor and you can be paid to go through the top survival training in the world. Like get out of here. Like, okay. And from the day that I heard of it, kind of crazy, because it usually takes 6 to 8 months of development and preparatory. From the day that I heard about it from the recruiter, it was less than 30 days before I was going down to boot camp. And
Holy crap.
I stole a slot from another guy who rolled his ankle or some crap. And so they called me up and they said, hey, we got a slot. And they asked for you by name because evidently you're the craziest bastard they got. So they're like, can you make it like tomorrow? You'd miss 2 days of basic training, which isn't anything to worry about. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So like that, I was off like a shot, kind of sped through stuff. A lot of guys will have 18 months to 2 years sometimes to actually get through all the programs. And I was through it just the way things lined up, not because I was a stud or anything. Honestly, I wasn't near what I wanted to be, but I was through all the training in about a year, about 12 months. So I kind of rocketed through the pipeline, and and then I started living life large at Fairchild, and I loved it so much. I was still single when I finished all my training. I wasn't sure if I was going to make a career out of it or not, but it turned out with a wife and kids that it was the right choice for me to step out of that, as wonderful as that is, because honestly, there's more opportunities as a civilian in retrospect, after that military experience, after that experience in training. So, so that's when, about a year ago, we officially started running operations as ARC, American Reconstruction Concepts. And, so the original intent was a mobile training platform to facilitate training across empty-handed self-defense, even defensive handgun. We have tactical carbine, different shooting courses, a lot of survival stuff, and then some SERE-specific trainings, kind of like the urban evasion stuff. Yeah. And we provide that anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, basically.
You mentioned you're mobile. If like a group of guys out east wanted to do SERE-specific stuff, could they just fly you out? Like, is that a thing you would offer? So you mentioned contracting.
6 months ago, I would have said that was a bridge too far, but now that's actually starting to become a reality. So we are working that out such that I can take a flight and other instructors if necessary as well. Because I've got that you'll find a few guys that are listed on our site as other instructors, but honestly, we've got 12 guys waiting in the wings that do help out on different occasion and their own, being subject matter experts of different things as they're needed. So yes, that is a thing. Now, locally in the Pacific Northwest, we need 5 people minimum to get together and say, hey, we want this course. And then we can even do it at their local training center, whatever that is, whatever they need. But it would just be kind of on a case by case basis if it was further than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know that, a lot of people struggle to find SERE schools or good SERE instructors. Mm-hmm. So the idea of booking someone out who's, cadre, like gone through this, lives it. When it comes to this stuff, Jared of Orion Training Group?
Yes, I know of him.
Yeah.
I met him at PSOC briefly just the other day.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's been on the show a couple times, and I saw him today, actually. Mm-hmm. He's autistic about CQB the way that, certain people are autistic about, I'm autistic about certain things. And I kind of love seeing that passion about a very particular subject matter come through when someone is teaching it.
Yes.
Like, there is no question that goes unanswered. Nothing. There's no there's nothing like that. There's always something because he's always thinking about it. Exactly. And I noticed similar with you. Like we were talking about SERE, your face lights up.
Yes. Right. Yeah. I was built for it, man. Some guys come in, literally some dudes will come in out of high school and finish high school, sign up and start going through training. And Lord love them, I don't know how they do it. I couldn't have done it getting out of high school. That would have been,
oh God, no. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a rough ride. Some guys make it though. And they're rock stars. That's great. But I was glad I was a little bit older whenever I went through the military, because I've done everything that wasn't that high speed, but the standard woodsman stuff, the self-defense, the creating things out of paracord, and just random things. I was that dude that went out and did an overnight in the middle of Washington winter by myself after taking a short course and being like, I need to test my mettle and see if I can do this. I didn't do very well, but I stuck it out.
But still, you're here and talking to me.
Yeah. So
you did that and went like, I want more of this. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, it was. I do. I love it. It's a passion, and I think that's honestly one of the things that I wanted to mention to the listeners whenever. Because not everybody's going to be able to train with Orion or with us or with some of the other great subject matter experts that you bring onto the show. It's just, it doesn't work out. But what they can do is they can go to their local guys and their local training centers, and they can train themselves. But yeah, I guess I'm so I hate bad trainers. Man, does that just it gets my ire up. I wanted to kind of put out a few guidelines on what I look for personally, and I've been able to see. I want to say I've seen it all. I've seen a lot of very great and very poor examples. Most of the great ones were veteran SERE guys in the military with 20 plus years of experience, just incredible men. And there's been some overarching qualities and characteristics that have made them great, I would say. I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit with you, if you don't mind. It's just like,
yeah, of course.
And I'd love to get your perspective too, an opinion on what makes a great instructor. And because to me, I think a lot is said not about their know-how and their knowledge base, although that's a part of it for sure. But it's more to do about their character and their principles and the way that they can present. Like I've gone to a class before where I paid good money to take a sniper course, and the poor guy was a very good sniper. I'm sure he was. I think he was. He had actually taken, bad dudes out in live situations as a cop, which is kind of rare, as a police sniper. But when it came to his teaching capability, he would get some wazoo question in a class, right? And then he's like, wow, that's a good question. He grabs this manual, right? And he starts flipping through the pages. And then he's like, well, it says here that, I was just like, oh my gosh, I paid money for this. I should be reading that book and watching YouTube's and not paying him to do this,
Yeah.
But anyway,
man.
But also so they have to have that knowledge base, but overarching more so is the humility. The humility is huge because, if you don't have what it takes to be able to tell somebody, I don't know, I know guys who are willing to say, that's a great question. Let me get back to you because I'm not sure about that. That's the right response to some areas. And whereas the guy who always has an answer, even whenever he doesn't really know, is doing people a disservice, so the humility to be honest and say,
I absolutely agree with that.
That's just, it's critically important. And then another thing too is well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? If you have humility, it means that you don't have ego. And I would say some of the, not in a bad way, you don't have ego. So it's super helpful because the people that I know who have been the worst instructors may have known a lot of experience, but they need that ego boost and that confidence jump, almost like a trip, like a ride, that they, and it's just sad to see them shut students down and, try to take advantage of people to make themselves look good. I had one guy come to a class of mine and we're just kind of going around the room, round robin, like, hey, why are you here for this class? What do you want to get out of it? Stuff like that. And he pipes up and he's like, well, I'm not here to learn anything. I'm just here to evaluate you. It's like,
what?
I was too nice. I was still making that, that bridge from military to civilian. And what I should have told him is like, well, dude, sorry, it's not about that. And, if we can't be here to prove ourselves, we need to be here to improve ourselves. So here's your refund and there's the door. But no, he ended up leaving halfway through and then talking bad about the class. And so I learned my lesson. It was like, that's just not a good indicator. That was a student, right? But if it's an instructor, it's so much worse, So I think character is just like the key. And I've seen the same thing in not students, but junior instructors, because for honestly, like half or more than half of my military career, I was a trainer of the other trainers and just trying to get them, prepped up to speed. So seeing character flaws where people won't be honest, won't be on time, won't be disciplined, won't be faithful to things, really bites them in the butt big time. And so you get put on the spot and you don't know answers and you're behind on things. And it just, things tend to cascade down whenever somebody doesn't have the foundation of character. And then they've got to have good presentation skills. They've got to be able to engage with people in a way that helps them open up. And I think you've probably been there too, where somebody is like, just can't stop talking and the instructor is just going on and on and on and on. And like, you take a lot less away from a class like that than whenever they stop and pose a question and like ask specific people and open up and let other people share a pertinent story, stuff like that. Everybody takes more away from that whenever somebody can clearly communicate and they don't have to talk the whole time, honestly.
Yeah.
So, I'm
still angry. Like, I know you said this like 2 hours ago. I'm still really angry that someone showed up to your class and was like, "Hey, I'm here to evaluate you." Like, I did basic. I was a clerk in Nom.
Right. The guy purportedly was a ranger back in the day, 30 some years ago or whatever. And I feel like he was like a non-battalion ranger. I feel like he was like maybe the guy that, I don't know. It's just, people, that's the other thing too. It's like, I would say a mark of a good instructor is someone that doesn't feel like they have to prove themselves. They just are who they are. And they don't have to be seen as the most magnificent person in everybody's eyes. Honestly, if they can show their own faults, proclaim their own weaknesses, that is a sign of a strong man. Because the weak person will always be telling you how great he is and, why you should listen to him. But
it's to convince him, not you.
Almost, right?
Yeah.
Almost. So, but yeah, those are some of the things. But also, I would say another thing about a good instructor is being able to keep people engaged and teach them in the way that they can learn. Because, as practically everybody knows, people learn different ways. You could tell me a statistic and it doesn't mean near as much as me as getting my hands on the tool and doing the thing. So there's different ways to translate skills. And if somebody is only giving you PowerPoints when you really should have been applying the skill halfway through at least, that there's a problem with that. You're not getting the same value for the same time. So that's something I'm a big proponent of, is that they give you things to do and then they can coach you, because that's honestly the fastest way to learn skills. So that's one reason too. The other thing is whenever I talk to people about training, right, and they can't make it to a class that they know they should be at, it's usually one of two things that they tell me. They say, it's either a time constraint or a money thing. And I understand that. I really do. We're not in economic good times, and you need to be a man and take care of your family first. But with that said, usually those are the excuses for the underlying reason of, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
But for those people that are not making training of themselves and others a priority in their lives, I want to encourage them to really pursue that as far as they are able to, because there is so much value in good training. And I think that might be a good segue to kind of talk about the value of quality training. What does that do for us? And please weigh in with your thoughts. I've got several things I wanted to say about it, but what do you think about, because you're a guy in the industry, right? You are constantly training, and I've seen you on the range. You don't get that fast or that accurate without a lot of time behind that gun, right? So,
oh man, it's I have a secret. It's called autism. Okay, it's called. I guess my parents My parents may have given me a little too much, I don't know, vaccines as a child. I got the smallpox thing, and I'm like, oh shit, now numbers mean way too much to me.
Right. That's funny.
But I'm so sorry. Continue.
But yeah, the value of training. It's and I think what you went to today is kind of a good testament of those guys that can see a quality operation. And you saw a bunch of dudes there going to Orion training at PSOC, right? And yes. Why were they there? They were there shelling out a good bit of money. Those courses are not what you call cheap, but you get what you pay for. The value's there.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. But they were willing to exchange their money for tremendous value because they understand that whenever you accept your responsibility as a protector, whenever you understand that you are your own first responder and that you must protect you and yours, nobody else is going to do it for you, and that you don't get to choose the moment. The moment's going to choose you. Bad things can happen to good people no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing. And if you're not standing ready and being prepared, you are going to be a victim of your lack of discipline and not owning your responsibility. So training is incredibly helpful. And I went through a hell of a lot of it in the military and provided a lot to people. And I see some constant trends where that training, even if, let's say, we're preparing people for long-term survival behind enemy lines, right? Even if they do not become that person stuck behind enemy lines, having to survive for a long time, that training was still incredibly helpful and valuable for them. It helped them in their mental resiliency, pushing outside of their comfort zone, learning new skills. It helped them to, overcome unique challenges. And it gave them, I think one of the most important things is it gives them new tools to put in their toolkit. So, for example, I think it was yesterday, day before, I don't know, the days are running together. I did a run into a jewelry store where I was securing some silver coins as an investment for some friends, right? They were like, hey, take this money, go pick up some silver. I want to be prepared, right? And, it was a decent amount. And so, all right, cool. I go there, but I don't park right in front of the store. And whenever I come out, I'm not the guy carrying a large, package of valuables. And whenever I leave, I'm not the guy that goes straight back to his home without checking his six. And there's things that even though I was not evading, running for my life in a foreign country, that were valuable for me to employ to mitigate that risk that is just a constant in our everyday lives. And I'll tell you the reason why I did that specifically is because years ago, gosh, it would have been, I think I was 15 whenever my dad went to the same jewelry store and did the same thing for a different friend. And he walked out of that store with, it was about $30,000 worth of silver. And we were followed, unbeknownst to us, until about an hour later, where we go to this pit stop. And it turns out, lo and behold, that the same dude who no doubt had a terrifically long criminal record. We're talking, prison tats of one of a kind with, how many people have a tattoo on their forehead? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This guy had seen us in the store, followed us back together with several others, and happened to be at the same pit stop. It's like we had so many red flags going up. And there was actually like an altercation that was mitigated and was very ominous and present. And they continued following us after that for another hour. But now our antennas were up. We had some essay, and we were like, hey, we might be getting into a fight like real soon. And so, I say that just to say that even if somebody isn't in a foreign country, even if they aren't going to secure thousands of dollars of precious metals, there are times in your life whenever you will need to employ different things that perhaps you learned at a class. But even if they aren't specific things that you learned in that class, it still puts you in a mindset of greater awareness of what situations could unfold and what you can do to hopefully mitigate them so it never gets to that point of you're staring down the barrel of a gun or a knife is pressed up against your throat. You know what I'm saying? Training for different kinds of scenarios just puts you in a different mindset. It helps you grow. It helps your mental resiliency, and it can help you be your own first responder, which is, I believe, every person's responsibility. It's too easy in modern day society as things are in America to just say, I don't need to prepare. Like, it'll be fine. Denial is usually the first reaction. So, quality training. I mean, we already talked about what bad instructors look like, but the impact of poor instructors is that now you are implementing TTPs that could be very hazardous, right? And that's like, I love people that are self-taught. I love it. I love the motivation. I love the drive. But the issue with being self-taught is many times, if you don't have somebody else who knows what they're doing, helping watch you, helping guide and govern you, like you've probably run into it. Like if you take somebody who's self-taught at the range, you get so many bad habits that you now have to undo, as opposed to the person who is maybe never shot a gun. And you're like, hey, do this. They do it. It's like, oh, how nice. They're doing it right. So training, yes, it's valuable, but right training and proper training is difficult to ensure quality control when you are your own supervisor. So getting good coaching from good instructors is hands down the fastest way to get a skill. And ladies and gentlemen, we are running out of time, and I do not agree with any kind of fear mongering, because I don't believe in fear. It's stupid. All right. The kind of fear that is just you're in terror for your life and paranoid, something that may never happen, doesn't make sense. But being prepared, that really does. And we should be more and more prepared, honestly, than ever before. I mean, from the state of the elections to the upheaval around the world to the petrodollar being dropped, like there's so many red flags and indicators that things are going to be categorically worse very, very soon. That if people can't see that, it's because they don't want to look at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I feel like that sort of rhetoric and like a lot of people who don't think about this, they're going to remain sort of blissfully ignorant until it's way too late. I know a lot of people who just like, well, I don't need that, and don't talk about it because it makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
And yeah, just never. You can never broach the subject until they're banging on your door or they're messaging you like, hey, you know how to use a gun, right? After things have gone to shit. It kind of happened in 2020. You see it happen every time things get really weird.
Yeah.
But when things are good, you know.
I mean, how many people would have thought that you were crazy if you're like preparing for a worldwide pandemic in 2019? It's like,
everyone.
Tinfoil hat, nutcase. Like, what? Why are you preparing for something that's never going to happen? Well, like, dude, there are world leaders that are talking about, Putin for one, about World War III officially kicking off in 3 months. Personally, kind of the opinion that all these conflicts around the world that have been happening the last couple of years are more or less a prelude, almost like you see in before World War I, World War II was officially declared as a world war. There's conflicts, and I don't know. I believe that we are closer than ever to catastrophic events. But even if we're not, and I hope we aren't, then local catastrophe, emergencies, and desperate situations can always happen to individuals. So, go back to that word, right? It would behoove us to.
It would behoove.
To get after it and really solidify your preps, sharpen your sword. Like everything that we do in the training culture is about mitigating risk and sharpening our sword and getting the cutting edge even more sharp, because all of this is like, you could be the best in the world, but if you're not constantly training and you're not getting better, you are digressing. And so there's something that I've run into, especially on the civilian side, is people tell me, oh yeah, I was in the military 20 years ago. I shot regular 5 years ago. I was a Boy Scout once, and I
shot 4-inch groups with iron sights at 400 yards. Like, no, that's all right. Okay.
So it's just like, yes, well, good for you. Don't stop. There's more. Every single area and arena, and honestly, this is one exciting part about being a SERE guy, is there are so many areas, so many rabbit holes you can go down, like escapes, right? You know the Houdini guy, right?
Yeah.
He was a master of escapes, and he wasn't as good as someone can get because it's an endless frontier. I tell people in combatives, you can train your whole life and you will never be Bruce Lee. I'm sorry to say it.
Yeah.
You can train your entire life with a handgun. You probably won't be as good as Jerry Michalek. And the reason why is because Jerry's still training. He's still getting better. Yeah. And that's the key, right? Is that with these things that matter, it's easy to get complacent, especially for guys that feel like they've made it. If they sit in complacency and you plateau, you're going to start going down unless you continue to try to hone that edge and hone your craft. I think that's just so important for everyone, really, but especially those people that are like, yeah, I did that back in the day. And it's like, well, yeah, how's that going for you?
Yeah.
So
it's like, what's a split time?
Yeah, exactly. So that's just something that I guess I'm passionate about, but I really want people to better themselves, and they don't have to do it with me. I'm definitely not the best at some of the things that I do. I'm out there doing it so that they can become better. And if I can help them be just a little bit better and take something away, I feel like it's at least a partial success. But really, I want to blow their socks off and get them to a whole new level. And generally people tell me, they're like, wow, like no matter what class we're doing, whoever's teaching, they're just like, hey, this is some top-notch stuff. I've had people tell me that between myself and some of the other guys that we have instruct, that it's the best that they've ever seen in their law enforcement career. And I've seen law enforcement trainers, so I'm not real surprised. And some guys have said that it's the best they've seen in their military career, and they've been in for 20 plus years. And it's like, well, that is awesome. But regardless,
I think if someone's passionate about teaching, it shows.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think the most rewarding thing to me, though, is just seeing them walk away with greater confidence and capability. And there's so many times that we get stories back, and I talk to people and they're like, hey, this happened, and I'm so thankful that we got to take some training because it turned out so much better and I was feeling so much more confident about it. And to me, that's the icing on the cake. That's like, as you know, in the training world, there's so many expenses. There's so many ways that good opportunities to not make money at training people. That you can't come in to the career field and really expect to walk away rich. Like, you're doing good if you break even a lot of times. I hate to say it, but so it's really, it has to be done for the people, and for their benefit. So, that's honestly one of the best parts for me, man.
Yeah. And I'm glad about that. Seriously. If I may add something, I think, like, we're talking about the trainers a lot. Mm-hmm. I think there has to be a standard, like, let me rephrase that. I think a high standard of student has to be attained as well. I think someone has to go in and want to learn and want to be challenged. And as you said, humble yourself as a student as well. Be open to this training. Obviously vet your instructors and everything else, but go in expecting, like, maybe this isn't the SOP that you learned back when you were a clerk in Bulgaristan.
Right. Exactly.
And I think the big thing too is practice on your own. Whatever you're getting out of a 3-day class, that's 3 days. People get paid. If you're in the military, you're doing this stuff not necessarily every day, not even nearly every day. Right. Your course is probably a little longer than 3 days, and it's probably going to be a lot of dry shit as well. You won't be evaluated the same way, and you're not going to get pushed through the program in the same way as if you're paying a company to teach you, and they have to condense all of that information down. Like, go and practice. You go learn SERE, cool. That's fine. Go plan a field X. Go camp. Go do anything. You took a 3-day pistol class, or a 2-day, or a 1-day. Cool. All right, go to the range every week, or every 2 weeks. Just keep up on those skills. I know a guy here, and God bless him. I think he's autistic in the bad way, like you don't want. And God, this guy must pay thousands of dollars on courses every year. He just finished and God, thank God he does not listen to this show. He doesn't have any idea what I do. I'm trying to make it a mission to, like, get this guy semi-proficient on literally anything that he wants to, and by God, it is hard. Because he doesn't put the time in.
Gotcha.
That's the thing. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, and he spends thousands of dollars every year on different courses that he doesn't retain anything from. Right, so, the guy's been doing carbine 1, carbine 2, pistol 1, pistol 2. I get him to, like, I take this guy out to train for free because now my pride is like, no, I want this guy to be good. Right. And the entire time is like 2 hours of me being like, man, you have to come back here on your own. You have to. Like, you have to just come to the range. Like, I at this point, I've given him hundreds of dollars worth of ammo, and he shoots marginally better than he did when I met him. Barely. Not even. Like, homeboy's shooting 6-inch groups at 50, supported from prone.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
And, like, you'll tighten it up to like 2 or 3 inches, which isn't fantastic. And next time you hit the range again, he hasn't gone in between, and he's shooting 5 or 6 inches again. He just forgets everything. And I think, like, shooting is depreciable skill. SERE, I'm sure, is depreciable skill. Like, all of this stuff is things you have to... Like, I haven't, done kill house stuff in months and months and months, and now I'm forgetting to dig my corner in the right way because I'm a little sleepy. I'm a sleepy boy. All of this stuff is depreciable, and you have to do it, and you can do most of this stuff on your own if you have a good foundation of knowledge. Yeah. I hesitate to say that I taught myself how to shoot. Like, I had a foundation for the military, but I did have access to professional instruction online. I did have access to friends who knew what they were doing. I had access to YouTube. I had access to, the videos from some of the best shooters in the world. There's like...
Absolutely.
Ben's... Yeah. I don't want to say their names because there's a lot of like super good shooters out there. Some of them are kind of dicks, but they are really good shooters, and they put a lot of good information out. Yeah. But and just going out and doing it and putting that time in, and I think that's true of basically any skill that you want to get good at.
Exactly.
You can't get good in a vacuum.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Those skills they can be learned, but they can't be made your habit without practice. They will not become your default under pressure without repetition, without honing that craft. And that's, that's a key part of making that training all that it should be. And the real value there is not having the mental assent or knowledge about, oh yeah, that's the way to actually clear a hallway, or in the combatives realm, actually land a proper strike, or in the survival realm, actually, break down a tree and start a fire. Like, that's not enough. And just doing it once is not enough to be able to rely on under critical stress. Like, if somebody's life was depending on you being able to now clear that hallway effectively, and you've only ever done it once, you haven't had enough time for the cement to dry and actually solidify a habit where you're going to default to that lowest level of training under stress. I mean, this is a principle down throughout the ages. I want to say it was one of the ancient Romans that actually said that, we want to believe that we rise to the occasion, but the truth is that we fall to our lowest level of training. This is something, dude. I've been reading about ancient battles and different ancient warriors, and just mad respect on a whole new level for both the Spartans and the Roman legionnaires, because they said something that I think is really indicative of the importance of good training, because the legions were the foremost and most elite fighting force on the globe during their time. And it was said of them that their training, their drills were like bloodless battles, and their battles were like bloody drills. Like, the only difference between practice and actual life or death was the effusion of blood, because they took it that serious. They fought that hard. And they kept going back to the basics. And one thing that was said about the legionnaires is that even the old veteran, like, we're talking somebody who's been in the military fighting force for over half their lifetime, they still had to do the same basic maneuvers that the brand new recruit had to do. You can always polish it. You can always get better, and they kept getting better. That was one reason why they, conquered the known world at that point. So anyway,
They just did Battle Drill 1 a whole bunch of times.
Exactly. And that's one indication of the professional versus, just the practitioner, because they say that the amateur trains until he gets it right, and the professional trains until he can't get it wrong, going from maybe being able to pull it off on a good day to it's so ingrained into your DNA that it's literally just a part of you. It's the way you're going to react. And that's that's really critical. If you are somebody who's going to be a first responder and you expect to be somebody who stands in the gap and whose life is going to be on the line when time is life, because hesitation kills. And, if you aren't responding with the right skill, the right tactic, more importantly, during that time of crisis, then not only do you put yourself at risk, but also those who you're standing up to protect, right? Your actions have more consequences. There are second, third, fourth, fifth order of effects to everything that we do in life. And the aspect of training does not live in a vacuum. It's not just something that guys do to be cool, to look good, to feel good about themselves. Those might be some motivations for a lot of people. And, I've been guilty of that sometimes too. It is fun. But the more important fundamental underlying reason is because it has to be driven from a heart of compassion and love for other people, because the ethos of the warrior is that they're going to go out and fight the battle that other people can't, or won't, whatever it is. So it's really important.
Yeah, I appreciate that ethos quite a bit, especially as I have, by my own admission, a somewhat cynical view of a lot of the training industry, and I think that ethos is quite refreshing, and it should be what people aspire to. Anyways, we are coming up on almost 2 hours here. I have to be up in 7 hours, and I think I've kept you up till almost midnight. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, you're good, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been fun. Sweet. Do you have any parting shots or anything you wanted to hit up on the last bit?
I'd like to do an after action after our next little course together on the urban stuff. I think that'll be pretty cool. I think that'd be fun to do. And I'm volunteering you, please have a couple more SERE stories for us. I think it'd be fun.
Okay. All right. You got it, man. Yes. Too easy.
It works. Say it's my curiosity. But before we wrap up here, one, tell us a little bit about where we can find you. Show yourself.
Absolutely. We are working on getting a shorter URL because it is insanely long, but it is a little
bit of a mouthful.
It's the full name of the company spelled out. So American Reconstruction Concepts.com. That's the website. We usually pretty fast on following up on the contact forms. Under registration, you'll see all the listed and planned scheduled trainings coming up, and then there's also a whole host of training. Actually, one thing we didn't talk about was the resort you came to. We'll have to save that for next time. Is the premium training up at that resort near the Canadian border.
That place was cool.
Yeah.
It was something. Was that near Canada?
It was very close. It was like 10 miles from the border.
Disgusting.
Yeah,
terrible.
Area.
Actually, no. I think it's close to Alberta, which is kind of fun. I actually like Alberta.
Yeah.
That explains it, though.
Yeah.
Anyways, but before we wrap up entirely, do you have any dad advice for our listeners?
Dad advice? Oh, man, always. Yes. Usually my dad jokes are better, but dad advice for sure.
Dad jokes are acceptable, too.
Okay.
Both is ideal.
Right on. So, dad advice. Just love the people in your life a little bit more ferociously, because you never know what day is going to be your last or their last. And so, no holds bars. It's like big, gigantic hugs for the right people, amazing sloppy kisses. It's like, this is definitely warranted. And take time to spend with the little guys, the children, the babies, right? They need it. They need some good dads in their life. Yeah, dude, definitely, read your Bible and make yourself a better man spiritually. And always remember to fight on your knees before you stand to your feet. So dad advice, check. Dad jokes. I don't like, do you know what makes a joke a dad joke?
What?
It's a parent. Yeah. So bad. So bad. All right, but it's one of my favorites. I don't know why.
I'm stealing that. I'm going to go use it before I forget.
Okay.
Oh man, that's really good. Okay. But yeah, American Reconstruction Concepts. Take a look at the course schedule and go sign up for stuff. I'll probably be there. The next two things I definitely will be at PSOC in Spokane. Thank you, Aaron, and also Chad, who did your logo. It's one of my favorite people.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to Chad.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Michael.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Oh, dude, anytime. Okay, bye.